And it's actually from the book of Esther in the Bible, of all places. It talks about Mordecai, who was a leader in that time.
A leader is also a light in the darkness.
I think differently, and now I believe in myself because I'm around him, and I think even more is possible.
Welcome to Leading Lubbock, the podcast where we spotlight the voices shaping our city and beyond. Each week, we bring you inspiring stories and thought-provoking conversations with leaders who are making a difference in their communities. What makes this journey unique? Every guest is nominated by someone who's already been on the show, creating a chain of leadership that reflects the power of connection and community. Join us as we explore what it takes to lead with purpose and impact. This is Leading Lubbock. Okay, here we are today, episode number 8 of Leading Lubbock, and today I have the privilege of interviewing and having a conversation with somebody that I've known for years and have the privilege of actually being down the street from, and Mr. Ed Wentz is with us today.
Yeah, man, Ruben, I always enjoy seeing your kids out there playing. It's just brought a lot of life in the neighborhood, and Jennifer's kids right next door, and it's neat to see you. Being a dad, working, doing this, I don't know how you get it all done, but it's pretty cool being neighbors and having my son down the street, and the friendships that we have out there at the canyon are pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it because sometimes I wonder when all our kids are out the front street, the front yard and on the street, some of those neighbors are hey, get your kids in.
Oh, man, it's great. It reminds me of when we were growing up, and my dad was in the Army, and all the kids lived around, about captain's kids are about the same age as the other captain's kids or the major's kids, and we'd all get out there and play football, kickball, just have a great time. So when I see that, it brings back great memories of our childhood.
Awesome. That's awesome. I want to go back to what you just said about captains. We're going to revisit that at some point.
All right.
I can't let that go unmentioned.
All right.
So Ed, you are owner of, or previous owner?
Previous owner, Wentz Orthodontics. So we've been in Lubbock, Texas. I'm an orthodontist, and I had an opportunity to practice with my sister, also an orthodontist. Some great colleagues that I get to practice with. Some kids that have grown up here get to practice with my son Parker, Brandon Tivis, Stephen Sperry. Just had some great people pass through. Great people that are still here, and it's been a wonderful journey for 38 years. And recently, my sister's retired. She's 9 years younger than me. And my wife, Lisa, we practice right next door. She's a periodontist, and she just retired this year and is doing a lot better than I thought. She's a busy bee. I call her the hummingbird because she does so much all the time, and I'm really proud of her. She's just pouring into other people. So it's been a pretty fun journey so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we've had the privilege of listening to one of your sons. He was on the episode, I think number 6.
Great.
Or maybe even before that.
Great.
And so everybody knows Garrett now, who's watched the episodes.
Awesome.
And you also have 3 other kids. So you've got 3 boys and a girl.
Yes, and really, really thankful, very proud of all my children. Garrett, he was a leader. He probably got more spankings than all the rest, but I'm sure he'll tell you they weren't deserved. But he was great, and it's just neat to see his character shine through and his work ethic. My son Parker, same thing. We get to practice together, and really, really proud of him. And Tucker, he's doing similar to what you're doing with commercial real estate, and never met a stranger. He could sit and talk to a 2-year-old for an hour, or some CEO of a company, and that doesn't matter. He loves everybody, and that's a great gift. And then of course my daughter's always so special, and very, very proud of her. She has 2 girls, and the only girls we've got in the family out of 6 now, going to be 7. And I prayed every day for her future husband, and Zyler is just everything that I could ever want. So I'm a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah, you got a lot of people around you, a lot of really great people
support
too. I mean, I see the happenings going on down the street.
Oh yeah,
there's always good company going on. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. Well,
I want to get into some leadership from you because you were, nominated by somebody who you led his entire life, Garrett. And I've heard him talk about your influence on his life. And I have never heard one negative thing come out of his mouth when it comes to Dad. Yeah. So that's big. Wow. It's really special.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, was it positive or negative leadership? Because I've got examples of a lot of those.
Well, I think even in the moments maybe where it was a little bit more negative, you at least shown the positive through that, which is something special.
Well, thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks. So let's dive into some leadership. I love to get your perspective on things, hear your story a little bit. Okay. And so first off, to you, what does effective leadership look like, and how has your perspective on that evolved over time?
Yeah, it's neat seeing somebody as young as you are, Ruben, focused on leadership, because leadership is so important. And when I was growing up, leadership is, I just thought that was something that bossy people wanted to do. And I was not interested at all. And then seeing different, like a different team change a coach and what a difference that makes, or a CEO of a company gets changed and what a difference that makes. And just in visiting with you here at Clear Rock, what that stands for, and you guys getting together with your deal and what you're focused on and what your heart is, I think it makes a nice culture, and whatever kind of culture you can create, I think really helps you in your leadership. I think the best thing as far as for me, that kind of changed things around for me, I was reading leadership books. That's what people said to do: read some leadership books, and they were neat and pretty exciting. I get excited about some of them. And my dad was staying with us at the house. He was a quadriplegic mute. He never drank, never smoked, played football in college, ran track. Just great man. He's my hero. And I asked him one day, we were watching a war movie, and he has a little cap on his head with a laser on it, and then he'll hit letters, and you have to spell it out. Sometimes we get in a little struggle because I'm not a very good speller. And but anyway, it was quick. I said, well, Dad, you were a leader. He was an orthodontic consultant to the Surgeon General. He was a colonel in the Army, and started different programs in the Army. And I thought, golly, I've got a resource right here. I'll just ask him. And I thought he'd hesitate, but he didn't hesitate a second. And he just looked at the letters and said, take care of your troops. And I thought, man, I could be a leader. That is something. It's not a selfish thing. It's about others and taking care of them. And then I look back on different coaches that I've had, different teachers that I've had, and somebody that'll take a genuine interest in you, somebody that you can trust. I think makes a good leader. You have to be able to communicate that. Everybody has to know the mission on what's expected, and I don't know. Now I do think leadership is very important. Man. And in this book, Extreme Ownership, what he says is there's no bad teams, just bad leaders. And in the Navy SEALs, they were out there in their little boats trying to do some races, and one team was complaining that the other team was just a better team, and so they just switched the leaders, and then the team with the new leader won the race. Just kind of as an example in that book, and so then sometimes these books, it's so neat to have mentors at your fingertips. You can get books, podcasts, things like you guys are doing, and it's just it's pretty neat to have that at your fingertips now. I remember we used to have to kind of listen to tape recordings and stuff like that. I don't know if you even know what that is. Yeah,
a few years of my life.
Yeah.
Well, the accessibility that we have now to people who have greats. Even if they're not historical great figures. They're people in our backyard. Across the street. It's great, and there's wisdom all around us if we tap into that. Yes. And I'd like to go into. I got two additional questions from that. One is this was somebody very close to you, your dad, who talked to you about taking care of your troops. And what was the name that people call your dad?
The colonel.
The colonel. Mm-hmm. And where is that just because of his duties?
I think that was when I had my first child. He didn't want to be Peepaw. He didn't want to be Pawpaw. He said he wanted something, and so he said, "Hey, how about Colonel?" And so that kind of stuck, and so he's known as the Colonel.
Yeah. And I love that too, just because it's got this like idea and this concept of leadership just
That's
right in that. I mean, we all look up to the Colonel, and I love that. And your name, you go by to your grandkids?
Y'all thought Clarence, couldn't get any of the kids that named their kids Clarence. So I think Brecca named her daughter Claire after Clarence. Okay. So I thought, all right, I'll go with that. Yeah. And I didn't name any of my kids Clarence, but we've got a lot of them in the family. Awesome. But I go by Doc. By Doc. Pretty much same reason I didn't want to be Peepaw. Yeah. But I guess, whatever they name you, that's what you're going to be.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's it. Yeah. So that first kid kind of just paves the way for the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned the captain. Is that right?
Oh, the captains. Well, when you're in the Army, you move around and you live in like an octoplex. And there's 8 families in that building. And then they're usually around a circle of grass. And all the activity happens in that circle of grass. So if you're a captain's kid, Dad was a captain at that time when I was growing up, then we get to go out there and play football, baseball, whatever. And so that's what reminds me about your kids out there playing, and they're always doing something fun. Yeah,
that's a blast. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you talked about taking care of your troops.
Yeah.
And I would love to know for you, what are your troops? When you think of that, who are the people or...
That's a great question,
what comes
Ruben.
to mind?
Different situations are different. Like, I think the one charge we have... as leaders of our family are to take care of our wives and our children. And so I guess, I see you have Stephen Covey's book here, Begin with the End in Mind. And I thought, well, what do I want for my kids? I want them to know Jesus. I want them to have a relationship with Jesus. So for me, with my family, that would be, we started every day with Proverbs. And everybody had to be down, and we just read a proverb, and then we could talk about it if we had our things together and ready to go. So that's how we'd start our day. Another thing that we tried to do for leadership is we'd always try to eat a meal together. Usually that was the evening meal, and we would go around the table and we'd ask all the kids about their day, and if there's something that popped up that was tricky in their day, like Susie's not talking to me or Coach didn't put me in, we'd talk about it, and then we'd have everybody weigh in on how they would handle that situation. So each day there'd be something up. I had plenty of stuff going in my office, so I'd just ask them, hey, Sally doesn't like Susie. Susie said this. What would you guys do? Yeah. And a lot of times I'd use those answers. I said, like, golly, that's a great idea. So trying to build thinking, leadership skills in that arena as well.
And how old were your kids about the time that you started introducing problem-solving ideas with your work examples?
Okay. I can't quite remember the age. I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 for sure. But and then usually we went from oldest to youngest, to give. But if I thought someone wasn't quite paying attention, I'd probably call on them first. But we get it was pretty fun.
Man, what a life lesson right there. It really even understand how to brainstorm with one another. Yeah. And you're not just doing life on your own, but what an opportunity to bring people into the fold with you.
And athletics gives you a lot of opportunities, about leadership. Do you respect authority when the referee makes a call? Do you honor that? Or do you throw a temper tantrum? Do you listen to what your coach says? Those are good things. And I think hopefully they pick things up without you having to say it. It's they're like little sponges, and so hopefully you've got to be on your best behavior, all the time. Mm-hmm. And not always was I, but that was the goal.
So From a practical example, I mean, because I can envision somebody listening in on this, and I'm even thinking to myself, if I'm just hearing this play and like, man, they're eating together, they're reading Proverbs together, they're having this conversation about dad and his work and problem solving, and how do you get that done in a day? Is that even possible? But I'd be curious, like from a practical standpoint, in the morning when you guys would get together, how much time are you taking as a family to talk about Proverbs?
Okay. That's a great question, and it does vary. I was very, very thankful. Lisa was an unbelievable mom to those kids. And before we went to bed, all the books and everything were packed by the chairs with all the things they need. You got your glove, you got your bat, you got your books, and snacks, lunch. It was good. She's like a short order cook. Everybody got different lunches. Now, when Lisa's out of town and it's me, you're getting this for lunch. If you don't like it, there's always supper. Anyway, a little different when Dad's there, but she was really good at that. And so we would call them down, and before they would eat, Lisa would have the breakfast already on the table, whatever they wanted, sausage, pancakes, oatmeal. They'd all have their deals, and then we go over Proverbs, and it does vary. I started off doing it at night because I thought that's kind of a sweet time when their hearts are open a little bit, and it's kind of nice, quiet. But then as the kids got baseball, basketball, and it's just hustle bustle, I wanted to make sure we got it in, so we started the mornings with it, and just every morning. Now sometimes our favorite one was Proverbs 3, 5, 6. Sometimes they'd be running out the door. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Boom, and that's it. So it's not a beautiful little house on the prairie, but we just try to get it done, and just the consistency.
Yeah, that was the word that came to my mind. It was consistent. Yeah, even if it was just the real quick.
Yeah,
that's incredible. How did you see that play out later in their life as they grew older? Do you feel like moments like that, the Proverbs moments in the mornings, led to them kind of taking off on their own?
That's one thing that I have struggled with through the years. I'll see great parents, and they've done everything that they can, and tricky things will happen later on in their kids' lives. And I've seen parents, I think, like, ooh, man, how are they doing it? And wow, great kids come out of that. So I don't think you can take credit for things like that. I think you can just do your best with what you've got, and just continue to pray. That good things will happen, and you get that relationship. So I'm very, very thankful. And I think having a wife that's her priority too, in kind of leading together and not apart. It's been helpful. I can only imagine, in broken homes and different standards or goals, it would be a little trickier. Yeah. And just continue to pray and hope for the best.
Right. Yeah. You're doing the best you can, and with the time you have, and the people in your lives. And yeah. So, well, I love the heart behind everything that you've done, though. Like just listening in on what you're saying, and even practicing that consistency is phenomenal.
So, thanks.
Yeah. So, are there any kind of daily habits that you practice regularly that help when it comes to leadership?
I still do that for myself. I have quiet time, and I wake up a little bit earlier than with our deal. And I think starting your day, with first fruits, that's what I try to do every day. And some of the different lessons I've learned, sometimes you'll plan your day, and somebody will come in. And a friend of mine, David Harmon, he said those are divine interruptions. And so you need to put down whatever you're doing and visit with that person. And so that's kind of a habit that I've picked up from a friend. And it's neat to have good friends in your life that think similarly. And that was a lesson that David taught me.
How long ago was that?
Probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. Yeah.
When you did this, I don't know if you'd be able to remember like specifically about this time, but do you feel like when you started making that change of considering it a divine interruption when somebody walked in the room, that it changed your response to them? Maybe even
a little bit, yeah, because you think about different things, like just like you read a book and then the situation happens, you go like, oh yeah, just like the book. And somebody will come in and you go like, they think, wait a minute, this is a divine intervention. Yeah, come on in. I got to get this done, but still. And then another good little periodical, I wouldn't call it a book, and you might have heard it, but Tyranny of the Urgent, and you have those quadrants.
Yeah.
And it seems like the things that are important are the things that you can kind of push down the road. And oftentimes you do the urgent instead. That's right. And I'm so guilty of that.
Yep.
But it helps you think, that little trick that David taught me.
So that's in Stephen Covey's book, I believe.
Oh, it is?
The quadrants. Where you've
Okay.
got,
The quadrants is in Steve. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he actually, I'd have to go back and look and see if like he actually calls it Tyranny of the Urgent in his book, but he's got the concept of important and urgent. And
Excellent.
Of course, not important and not urgent.
Perfect.
And unfortunately, we live in urgent land.
Oh, we do.
It's just putting fire out after fire.
Yeah.
And we neglect the important side of things.
Yeah.
And some of those things in the important, usually they're much further out, right? They're not right now. And they're the things you don't see that immediate return from.
Yeah.
They're longer and relationships.
Yeah. Relationships, your health.
That's right.
All those things sometimes take a back seat to the urgent.
That's right. Until they become urgent.
Yeah.
Right. Which then is the pitfall of if your health is now urgent,
right.
that's not good.
Yeah.
If relationships need urgent care, it's probably because you've neglected them for too long.
Yes.
So I love that. I love what you're doing there, and even just bringing that back to light, because I think we all need to be reminded of what's the importance. I'm gonna sidetrack us real quick, and I'm gonna bring us over to. I want you to see this. The way that I plan out my day now is based off of Covey's concept.
Wow.
So I have the four quadrants.
That is great.
And I rewrite it every day because I know that I need to see it. If I'm repeating that same thing over and over again, I need to know that.
So good.
Anyways, going back to that same concept of making sure that you're doing things in line with your priorities.
Great, Ruben.
Where I notice that I fall in all the time is urgent.
Yeah.
It's urgent. And it's just how many times now have I moved that important item like to the next page and the next page and then 2 weeks later.
Ruben.
So,
That's very good.
Well,
yeah.
All right. So is there a pivotal moment in your career or your life that's had the greatest impact on who you are today?
I had a coach one time. Basically, in that sand lot, that's where everything seemed to happen. And in the Army, you move around everybody, usually every 2 years. And the way you make friends is usually at recess. And if you're good, then they'll pick you on your team. When you're the new kid, they'll line you up on the wall. Everybody will be gone except for you and maybe a couple other kids. And they'll say, well, I'll give you Tommy, Johnny, and the new kid if you give me George, and stuff like that. So athletics was pretty important growing up. And if you did well, then you got accepted on the teams and your friends and things like that. And it seemed pretty, I didn't know it at the time, what conditional love was. But I got on the track team in college, and the coach had me run a certain race, and it's one of my favorite races, and I did very, very poorly, and I was so depressed. I thought, man, I didn't do very well, and the coach came up and said, hey, Ed, how did you feel about that race? I said, man, I'm sorry for letting you down. I really thought I could have done a better job. And he says, here at Wheaton College, We care about you as a person. And who's going to remember what you ran 10 years from now? Do you think a second or half second is going to make a difference in your life overall? And I thought, wow, that was a pretty big deal. He cares for me for who I am. And, I did get to see that with my family, but from somebody else, it was kind of neat to not have to make a certain goal, score a certain thing on my test, run a certain time, just likes you for who you are. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really good. And I think that's how God sees us from, inside, not on the outside. And that was really good as far as thinking about what's important in life. And then, of course, Ecclesiastes is probably the best at that, all the things that wisest man in the world went through and came up with just, love God and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So I don't know. That was a big thing for me, that always trying to achieve, and to get into different schools, you always have to make a certain mark and things like that. So that was a big one.
Yeah, it's like I'm thinking of just like a focus. This is what I do, and I think most of us are tempted to do, is we zoom in on what is right here, right now. Mm-hmm. And that's the focus. Mm-hmm. And in those moments of the time, when we let people down, or the grade we got, or the business failure of the day. Mm-hmm. I had this sell opportunity and I missed it. It went to somebody else. And we can make life so drastically about that moment that then it actually does impact our life in a very unhealthy way.
Right.
Rather than, I think what I'm hearing you say is that coach widen the lens for you a little bit. Yeah. And let you see this is a few seconds of an overall big picture. Yeah. And keep your eye on the big picture. Yeah. Not in the right here, right now.
So true, Ruben. I agree. You're not what you do. You're who you are for him. And I think that's a huge deal.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so what's one lesson that you've learned that you wish you would have learned a little bit earlier on?
Oh, golly. I think it would be a little bit with my prayer life. I was, I think, orthodontist, and basically, I would pray for God to get me from A to B, and I need to get to B if you can just help me get there. And then other people said, "Well, did you pray and ask God what He wants you to do?" And that was kind of a little bit of a game changer, and I think that's pretty important, and I'm surprised that I didn't get that until late. But it was a good lesson to learn.
So you're saying going from point B is where I know I want to go.
Yes.
God, exactly. Will you help me to get there?
Yeah.
Rather than, hey God, where's point B?
Yeah.
Can you tell me that first? And
you nailed it. That was the thought, and it was different than I had been doing, and I thought that was a neat concept.
Yeah. How do you explain that to people younger than you now, in a way that maybe they'll pick that up a little earlier?
Yeah,
maybe like you wish you did.
That's a good question. Well, first I just try to verbalize it, and then I think a lot of times we're faced with different decisions in different directions that we think we could go. And I always talk to them about praying that God will open the doors that need to open and close those that don't. And how important it is to have that relationship. Sometimes you think, well, God's got so many other things to do. He's not going to care about my little deal here. But He hears all that. And then for me, if I get a peace, if I feel good about it, and I think Garrett visited with you about his book Sacred Pace that Parker, our second son, actually gave to both of us. If you get neutral about it, just to get to a point where, hey, this goes great, this goes great, and let God kind of direct your heart. And I think having a peace helps me make decisions.
There's a verse that's been on my mind the last few weeks, and it's Isaiah 26:3. He keeps him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on him because he trusts in him.
That's so good.
And there's that element of trusting
Yeah.
Because I think we just have this idea in our mind. We know what's best for us.
Yeah.
So if we could just get that, we're going to be
Yes.
all right. And, you don't
yeah.
understand it in the moment,
Yeah.
but there's a different story playing out.
Yeah. Yeah. I could remember reading some autobiographies, and, it's like some famous general in the Civil War. And, he wanted to be a botanist. And I'm going like, don't do that. You're going to be a general, or, just thinking about that. Yeah. God's got a plan.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, one of my favorite things on the episode is asking the interviewee what their favorite book is, or what a book is that impacted them.
Yeah.
And you've alluded to this one over here, but I want to specifically spend some time in the book that you chosen, which was Extreme Ownership.
Okay.
And I'd love to hear. Tell me about how it's impacted you. Maybe some things that you pulled from it.
Yeah, I guess it was just because it's at that time of my life. When I was starting my business, read Covey's book and begin with the end in mind. And so you try to think of, what do I want for my business, what I want it to look like, and things like that. And then read Gerber's book. If you want to try to scale things and serve more people, then you need to develop systems, and then another one on service. And I thought that was quality, price, and service. Some people say just choose two, And we wanted to concentrate there. But as I went along and the practice got bigger, it was harder for me to implement different things, and it gave me a good way to implement things. I think they call it decentralization of command. Another thing about ownership was that it was really freeing. I also read Vivek Ramaswamy, the guy that ran for president, his book, A Nation of Victims. And the deal about taking ownership of something is so freeing because you have control. If you're a victim, then you just writing it out. Well, people don't like me because I'm not from here, or people don't like me because of any reason, and or the coach doesn't like me. That's why he's not playing me. So you can become a victim, and you don't have it. So, but with owning it, you have a way out, and so I like that. But the decentralization of command was one of my favorite parts in there. And I'd start new things like, let's see, okay, I wanted to have one of the things in orthodontics that people lose their retainers. And it's always tricky. The kid lost it. It's a sad time, and, we have to send it out to the lab. And it doesn't create the most positive vibrations between mom and son, between me and mom. And so we wanted to get an assurance, I guess we can't call it insurance program going. And I thought about that for at least a year, and couldn't quite put it together. And I call this analysis paralysis. I would just try to work every scenario out. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And I never did get it off the ground in a whole year. And I tell the staff, why, and I just couldn't get it. The other one is ready, fire, aim, and I've done that too. Mm-hmm. We have a capability now to scan the teeth with the braces on, have the patient able to make appointments online, and we have AI that helps us see if the Invisalign's fitting correctly and things like that. It's just really, really neat. And I was so excited about it. I just said, hey, let's do it. And just threw it at the team. Not a whole lot of how to do it, which kind of goes back to that, Dan Sullivan's book that we talked about, who not what. But, and I'd tell them, like, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to love this. And this is why. So let's get it going. And then you have little casualties. Things don't quite work like you'd like them. So those two extremes in what he says in decentralization of command, you get the people together, like maybe the front desk, your administrative people, the clinical assistant. You say, look, this is what I'd like to do. Can you guys come up with a plan so that we can implement it? and then they'll come up with a plan. Because if your plan fails, they'll say like, "Told you." I mean, I could have told you that would work. But if it's their plan, they take a little bit more ownership of it, and it helps out. And what was neat for me, and I'm sure you do the same, you feel like you're spinning lots of different plates, and you can send that one to those people. They have ownership in doing it, and people feel better about having control of their own environment, and it gets done, and it's probably going to be better than if I would have done it myself. So that was a neat concept from the book. There's just a ton of good things. I like it that it breaks it down, gives an example, and a lot of these are war examples. So sometimes for the team, we'll try to make them like, hey, the kid's doing this and mom's doing that, so you have to do it a little bit differently. But it was a excellent book.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and it sounds like it takes maybe a lot of the focus and attention off of us, because I think we think it's hard to let go of something because it's not going to be done as well as if I did it.
Right.
And yet,
boy, Ruben, you hit the key point in that book. One of the main things, Cover and Move is the deal, and he talks about you have to get rid of your ego.
Yeah.
And if you have an ego, it's not going to work really well. And so he talks about a time when they were scaling up a boat, and they were going to take the boat, and everybody was looking in their binoculars, and they're focused in one little area. And he says what he does, he sits back, takes a look around, and makes a call. Mm-hmm. So he gets to see a different perspective than you do in your binoculars. And he made the call when he wasn't the primary officer that's supposed to make the call, but he took that leadership role and to step back from his ego and just let it happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. You hit it right on the head. Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Man, well, I've enjoyed this a ton. I think there's so many good things that even as a dad that I can step out and just start utilizing immediately. Even in my own personal life. So I just 100% without a doubt think people are going to be able to just take nuggets of this and hang on to those.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
It's been neat hearing your story and getting to see what you're doing. I mean, see young kids doing that. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I like to leave with one question.
Okay.
Which is, if you could define leadership in one simple sentence, what would that be?
That'd be easy, and that'd be from my dad. Take care of your troops.
Take care of your troops. I love it. I think we need to make a wall hanging to put that somewhere.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, today was not the first time I heard that.
Okay.
I've got to hear Garrett, talk
Good.
about it a lot.
Good.
And I know he's got his troops that he's taking care of. And so the way that's just trickling down from Colonel, right?
Yeah.
And it's just going down. So
very, very thankful.
I love that. Yeah. I love it. And I think so it's taking care of your troops, and in order to do that, you need to know who your troops are. So really identifying those, and I think that just sums up leadership so well. Know who you're leading, and then take care of them. So thank you for that. Thank you for the wisdom that you shared today. And Ed, thank you for coming on the show.
All right.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.